Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. As you all know, the Economic and Social Council organized today a special meeting on the current situation in Haiti with a special focus on the children and youth. It's an honor to welcome His Excellency Ambassador Bob Rae, President of the Economic and Social Council, and Ms. Catherine Russell, who is the Executive Director of the United Nations Children's Fund and the Interagency Standing Committee Principal Advocate for Haiti. I will give them the floor so that they can reflect on the meeting that happens this morning and also bring some outcome to the meeting. First, Ambassador Rae, you have the floor.
Merci beaucoup. Je vais donner quelques paroles en français et puis je vais donner quelques paroles en anglais, si c'est bon. On a eu une session importante aujourd'hui pour discuter la situation en Haïti, surtout en ce qui concerne les enfants. J'étais en Haïti il y a 2 mois. J'étais très, très frappé par les grands défis des enfants, la situation vraiment désastreuse du point de vue humanitaire. Et on a eu l'opportunité aujourd'hui de discuter et d'entendre plutôt des experts comme Cathy et les autres qui sont venus on a pu parler avec les gens directement en Haïti, de façon virtuelle, pour discuter directement la gravité de la situation. Je peux vous donner des chiffres, mes chiffres sont terribles. Peut-être le chiffre le plus important, c'est qu'il y a une augmentation de 70% dans les jeunes qui ont été attirés vers les gangs, ce qui représente un problème énorme et qui représente jusqu'à quel point c'est sérieux. On a aussi entendu la situation du point de vue de nourriture, la situation non seulement des enfants, mais de toute la population et les jeunes. Et puis finalement, je crois que pour moi, la situation la plus urgente, c'est la question de comment créer des conditions de sécurité, à la fois comment faire face aux problèmes humanitaires et aux problèmes de développement de long terme, et la question des élections et d'un gouvernement qui représente et qui est élu par la population haïtienne. We had a good meeting today. I won't take too long, just to say that it was very powerful. We heard from civil society representatives. We heard from young people. We heard from a young singer who sang to us the extent of the crisis. We heard directly from all of the experts on the ground, as well as from UNICEF and the World Food Program. And it was a very good opportunity for us to raise greater awareness among the membership, and I hope more broadly, about what we can do in Haiti. And I think the 4 key points that I took away from the discussion today were these. First of all, that the security question is number 1. It's not about saying is humanitarian more important. The point is you can't get assistance to the people who need it until we have security. You can't address the urgent needs that people have for food and for education and for some kind of housing unless you deal with the security problem. So that puts the security issue at the front of the line in terms of what is the key enabler to getting things done. But then we also have to look and deal with the urgent humanitarian issue, which I know Cathy will want to address because of her responsibilities in the UN system. And we also need to look beyond just the humanitarian. We have to look to the question of what do we do with respect to long-term development. There are encouraging signs in all of these in the sense that we now have people on the ground from Kenya, from other countries in the region, which we didn't have 3 months ago. We have them now. We have more coming. We have greater assistance to the HNP. We'll have more coming. But it's still, we need to do more, even more than the more we need to do, because whatever we're doing is not enough to make the difference that we need to make. We have a greater recognition of the extent of the humanitarian crisis, unfortunately not really matched yet by the degree of attention that it deserves. We have a plan being developed together with the multilateral regional banks to create a plan for the development, which will be, again, led by the government of Haiti. And we do have a common agreement among all the parties in Haiti that there needs to be an electoral commission that will take us to an election. These things are all agreed to. We need to get moving on all of them. But let me come back to the first point. Security, security, security. Without it, life will be, as Thomas Hobbes warned us 400 years ago, nasty, brutish, and short. If you don't have security, you don't have the other things that are required to get us to peace, development, and human rights. That's an essential point we want to make today. Thank you so much for listening. Kathy, please.
Great. Thank you so much, Ambassador Rae. And I want to just say at the outset how persistent and stalwart you have been on this issue, which we very much appreciate. So I thought what I would do today is just give you a little bit of an overview of the humanitarian situation, just so you have some idea of what's going on. Essentially, from the UNICEF perspective, we would say that Haiti is one of the worst places on the planet to be a child. Children and families continue to experience unprecedented levels of lawlessness and brutality at the hands of the armed groups. These groups are attacking hospitals, health centers, schools in Port-au-Prince and beyond. They particularly target women and children to terrorize and control entire communities. Killings, kidnappings, and sexual violence, already at some of the highest levels in recent years, have continued to increase. Meanwhile, nearly half of Haiti's population, approximately 5.5 million people, are in need of humanitarian aid, while about 5.4 million people face severe food insecurity. Many of them are women and children. Horrific violence has displaced more than 750,000 people, over half of them children who are often cramped together without adequate access to water, protection, food, and health services. By some estimates, armed groups now control 85% of the capital, while attacking remaining pockets of relative safety. Sexual violence, especially rape and sexual slavery, is rampant against women and girls. So are incidents of forced recruitment of children. The number of children recruited by armed groups in Haiti has increased by 70% in the last year alone. This unprecedented spike reveals the sheer level of desperation that these children are facing. At present, up to half of all members of armed groups are children, fueled by escalating violence, pervasive poverty, separation from parents or caregivers, the lack of social services, and near collapse of essential services they rely on to survive. In Port-au-Prince, for example, only 55% of health facilities are functioning or partially functioning, while hundreds of thousands of children have had their access to education disrupted. Humanitarian partners continue to stay and do heroic work under the most difficult and dangerous circumstances. This year alone, UNICEF has provided thousands of children and families with life-saving health, nutrition, water, sanitation, protection, and social services. But humanitarian assistance, while critical, is only a Band-Aid on a festering wound. It cannot replace political steps to address the root causes of this crisis. Solutions must be Haitian-led. I urge the transitional government of Haiti to take action to protect children and ensure a safe and secure environment for all civilians. All parties must prevent and end grave violations against children, including killing, maiming, abductions, recruitment, and attacks on essential services that children rely on. Humanitarians must have safe and unimpeded access to communities in need, no matter where they are. And the international community needs to fund the overall humanitarian response plan, which at this point is only 43% funded. Children of Haiti need the world's attention. They are crying out for that. And I think that it's really incumbent upon all of us to do everything we can to hear their cries and to do something about it. Thanks.
Thank you. I would like to first open for question and answers, but please, if you could keep your questions specifically on Haiti and the situation on Haiti. Let me give you first the questions to Anka, please.
Thanks. On behalf of the UN Correspondent Association, thank you for doing this briefing. I'm Amélie Botelier from AFP News Agency. I have two questions. First, you both mentioned here and in the meeting the number, the proportion of children being enrolled in the gangs. Can you elaborate about how you managed to get this number and what is the specific numbers of these children being in the gangs? And second question, the Haitian representative today restated their request to transform the MSS into peacekeeping operation, UN peacekeeping operation. do you think that would be the best way to proceed? Thank you.
Our understanding is that there's been an agreement, at least for the Secretary General, to come forward with a report on, what form the next steps could take. From Canada's point of view, we want to make sure we're focusing on the current situation, and obviously the Security Council discussions will go where they will go. But we're determined to make the current mission a success, and we're determined to build up stronger support for what BINU is doing, for any efforts we can make, for example, to develop an effective anti-gang strategy, to develop a strategy of getting kids away from the gang structures. I don't have an exact number. It's certainly in the thousands, and beyond that, I don't have an exact number, but I do think it's important to understand that as opposed to most of the other security situations in which we find ourselves around the world, this one is a pure organized crime situation in which organized crime essentially is becoming a world unto itself, recruiting children into itself, and making it impossible for the people of Port-au-Prince and for much of the rest of Haiti to be able to live their lives. And so we need a strategy for security that's based on that. This isn't a fight between two countries. This isn't a deeply ideological battle. This isn't like many of the other conflicts which you've been hearing about today. This is a very particular kind of problem. But I think it's important to stress that it's not only a threat to Haiti, it's a threat to the region. Because if you allow one state to be captured by organized crime and essentially to become a haven for organized criminal activity, that then becomes a base of activity for the rest of the region. And that's why it's so critically important for us to pay attention to it, but also to remember the fact that most of the recruits in gangs are children is not unusual. In every situation, gangs are made up of younger people who are recruited by older people. And we have to understand the structure of those gangs. We have to break them up. Those who are responsible have to be held accountable. And we've got to get the kids out of this structure, which is doing so much damage to themselves and to their families, but above all to the whole country of Haiti.
Can I add just one point to that? I think we don't have or at least I don't have an exact number either. I don't know if our teams do, but we can follow up if they do. I think the key point from our perspective is that the percentage of children, the percentage of these gangs is like roughly 50%, and exactly what Bob's saying. We've seen an increase in that. And I think that speaks to the fact that the gangs are recruiting children, and also children are so desperate, and they have no other way, in many cases, of providing for themselves or, more importantly, protecting themselves. So I think we're alarmed by the increase in the percentage of gang members who are children, and really feel like we need to try to address that.
In an earlier meeting we had, and I quoted it today, but I'll quote it again for you. In an earlier meeting today, we had a young kid said to me, he said, why should it be easier to get a gun than to get a meal? And that's the situation. That speaks to the issue of arms trafficking. Why aren't we doing more to stop that? Why can't we deal with that as an issue more effectively? A lot of other issues that we have to deal with.
If you can identify yourself before asking a question.
Yes. Joseph Klein of Canada Free Press. To what extent, if you have any data on this, are the gang members fighting in Haiti, some of them are from outside of Haiti, from other countries, perhaps Venezuela, trying the Aruga gang, or other gangs from criminal interests outside of Haiti, or is this entirely, as far as you know, homegrown? And secondly, maybe I missed this, but in terms of the children who are being recruited into these gangs, could you give age range? I mean, especially at the younger end of the spectrum. Thank you.
Well, let me just say a couple of things. First of all, there's no doubt that essentially it's a homegrown issue. Haiti, the existence of crime and organized crime in Haiti is not new. What's new is the extent of it and the weakness of the state and the failure of the state to be able to respond effectively to it. That's one point I would make. The second point I would make is, we're living in a world where nothing is, to say something is homegrown doesn't mean that it doesn't have other connections. And I think we all need to understand and learn more what are the connections to other places. What are the connections to Miami? What are the connections to this city? What are the connections to Montreal? One of the reasons why we've sanctioned people outside the country or who are residents sometimes in Haiti, sometimes not. The leaders of the gangs are not living in Port-au-Prince necessarily. They can be living in any part of the world. The question is, they are dominating and taking over the activities of a lot of people who are desperate for food, desperate for work, desperate for jobs, and that's how they're being recruited. I'll let, if Kathy knows the answer to this, but I'll just give you my suspicion. Kids could be as young as 8 or 9, and I mean, Kathy told a story earlier today about, a young woman of 11 who was having a baby. I mean, these are, and the people who are the victims of these gangs are all ages. The people who are being recruited are younger than you might think as well.
I mean, I don't have any separate data on the actual ages of children, but we do see, certainly see young children impacted both directly as victims and as perpetrators or as members of the gangs. And I think, we're concerned about that, obviously. And again, I think it does speak to how desperate some of these children are. For us, anybody under the age of 18 is a child, so it couldn't be anything up to the age of 17. But I think we are concerned just about the increase in numbers and the fact that a lot of these are younger people.
Any additional? Voice of America?
Thanks, Ambassador. Thanks, Ms. Russell. It's Margaret Bashir, Voice of America. Just following up on the children and the gangs, if 30 to 54% of the gang members are children, why then is it so hard to break the back of these gangs? I mean, it seems to me if you're fighting teenagers, the MSS and the HMP should be able to accomplish a bit more than they have so far.
One of the real challenges, well, there's first a couple of things. Nobody wants to be blunt. Nobody wants to shoot kids. Let's be direct about that. Secondly, the people who are controlling the gangs have a lot of money, and they have a lot of weaponry. And catching up, frankly, with a situation where the gangs are better equipped, more advanced equipment, and more sophisticated equipment than what the Haitian state has been able to provide to the HNP is a significant source of the problem. And that's something which we are really working overtime to try and remedy, to create an effective response. But I go back to my first point. You need to understand that the way in which you can deal with gangs of this kind without causing another humanitarian tragedy, which would be the death of a lot of kids in a violent situation, is you really have to work through how to do this in a way that's not going to be simply destructive of young lives. So it's a more complicated fight than perhaps many others that we've been in. But let's not forget that we saw in West Africa and other places where the recruitment of child soldiers was a genuine problem that the UN itself decided had to be seen as a separate kind of battle, second kind of struggle that we're in. And that's not dissimilar from the one we're in right now in Port-au-Prince.
Could I just ask Ms. Russell one question? Do you anticipate staying in your position after January 20th?
Well, I have 2 more years on my term, so yes, as far as I know, I'm staying in my term.
Next question.
So am I.
Thank you.
And I'm glad to hear that.
Abdulhamid Sayam from the Arabic Daily Al-Quds Al-Arabi. Could you tell us more about the role of CARICOM and OAS? Are they involved similar to the African Union when they have some kind of involvement in peacekeeping in the continent? Why these groups are not doing much in the case of Haiti? Second question about the education system. How is school functioning in Haiti? Do they
I'll let Kathy answer the second one, and I'll answer the first
yeah,
one.
but I have another question to
Oh,
Mr.
you have three.
Ms.
Okay.
Russell, if she allows me to ask a question about Gaza, only if you say, okay, go ahead, ask a question.
I think the hope was that we would keep focus on.
Let's
Haiti.
focus on
It's so
Haiti,
hard to get
please.
attention on Haiti,
respect
so
that.
happy
Thank
to
you.
have my office respond to whatever
No
other
problem.
questions
No
you have.
problem. Thank you.
On your first point, it's really been a remarkable development over the last, I'd say, 18 months, that the engagement of the CARICOM region, the engagement of regional partners, has been a really important development in the way in which we've gotten to the point we are right now. We have an MSS. There are Caribbean countries that are contributing to the MSS. There will be more. There's been a group of elders from the CARICOM group who have acted as political advisors, trying to get us to a point of a political rapprochement among the leadership of the political parties in Haiti. There's been a lot of criticism about how things were done in the past, and I think we've all had to take a step back and learn from that, say the Haitian government is in charge of this process. It has to be led by the Haitian government. They have to take the direction that they feel is necessary. We have to provide support, financial and otherwise, and there has to be regional support, regional engagement. And I think that's happening, and that's happening with the OAS as well. The coordination of some of the strategic assistance that we're providing to the Haitian National Police and to the MSS together is being partially coordinated by people working within the OAS office in Washington. So we're trying to do it better, but we also, frankly, I think we all recognize we need to do more. But it is a different situation than previous interventions, and I think that's what makes it complicated, but I think it's also in the end, which I think is going to should give a better result, because it will be one in which the Haitian people have ownership of the effort to try to get to this solution. But I must say that in the meantime, we've seen a doubling of the recruitment, almost a doubling, 70% increase in recruitment of children. That's over the last year. So you've got to say, okay, but we need to gain more ground than we've been able to gain so far. And that's why we wanted to have the meeting today, was to draw people's attention to what the actual situation on the ground is. But the regional ownership of this issue and national ownership of this issue is, I think, critically important. And one of the reasons that regional ownership is happening is what I said before, because everybody understands that the question of organized crime, trafficking in people, trafficking in weapons, trafficking in drugs is not a Haitian issue alone. It's a regional issue that everyone has to understand requires a stronger regional response.
Any? Yes.
Did you want me to address the
Yes.
school question?
Yes.
Okay, just briefly. The challenge is about 700,000 people are displaced. Half of those are children. So it's very difficult to provide schooling and education to children who are on the move. We're trying to do that. I was in Haiti several months ago. I visited a school that UNICEF supports, and WFP supported a food feeding program there, and it was terrific to see it all come together and try to support the community. But it is very, very difficult to continue to do that when we're, obviously facing such incredible violence in so many parts of Port-au-Prince in particular. In some other parts of the country, it is a little bit easier because there's less threat, so it's easier to keep kids in school.
Any additional questions? Yes, on the left side.
Yes. Stefano Vaccara, La Voce di New York, Ital Press. Well, you said on the beginning, security for this country. Now, we saw that the mission, what's called MSS, didn't work. So they all at least didn't work the way it's supposed to work. Now, the only solution until now, even the Biden administration wanted to be transformed to the UN mission. We know what's happening on the January 20th. So there is any strategy to do something before January 20th, something that can somehow, some way fix this situation where the UN should replace? Or did you have contact with the Trump administration to check it out? What is their plan? Do they agree with that it should be replaced, that the force should be replaced with the UN operation? If it's not agreeing, are you doing something to try to, I don't know, there are only, 50 days or whatever they are, but can you do something before this January 20th?
Well, we're working to expand the size of the MSS. I think the MSS is frankly a work in progress, and we have to keep on supporting it and keep on extending it, making sure it's better equipped, making sure the Haitian National Police are better equipped, and that's exactly what we're doing. So your definitive statement is saying it's been a failure. Sorry, I don't agree. I think it's difficult, but I don't think any of us are prepared to give up or lose our focus on the importance of strengthening the MSS. No, I haven't had, nobody that has had any discussions with, I have not had any discussions with the incoming administration. It would be totally inappropriate, and I think maybe even illegal for me to do so. In terms of trying to get a definitive view of what's going to happen. I'm not going to do that. No, we're working with what is there. We're continuing to work with our partners and with our allies to make sure that we've got as much support going into, and I'm speaking now as Canada, everything we can to push things forward on that front. And I think it's fair to say that the important point is whatever happens with respect to discussions around a potential alternative force, don't lose your focus on the fighting that's going on right now. Don't lose your focus on the need to support that, and don't lose focus on the need to keep pushing forward on that front. And let the Security Council or other discussions are underway, that's fine, but don't lose focus on what we need to keep our attention. And as the song today said, it's pay attention to the children. Pay attention to the children and pay attention to what it's going to take to improve their condition today, not in a week or next year, but today.
Okay. Let's go virtual quickly. Jacqueline Charles from the Miami Herald.
Yes, hi, good afternoon. I have two questions. The first question, Ambassador Rae, to follow up to the question that was just asked. I mean, at the most recent Security Council meeting, we did not hear from National Security Director Numa from Kenya on a date. Unlike when the President Ruto visited and we heard specifics, we are now in December. We still have 416 foreign police officers, mostly on the ground. No signs for when Kenya will send the remaining 617 or Jamaica will send those. On the ground, what we're seeing is that the MSS is having the same struggles and challenges the Haitian National Police have in terms of their ability to hold ground. So I'm just wondering, do you have a specific date or update for us on when these additional troops will come, and will the money, which is supposed to be running out as early as February, we've been told, will that money be replenished to hold them? My second question is...
I can just before I get to your second question. First of all, Jackie, it's nice to see you. I would say to you very directly that the money is not running out. The fund is in a good condition, the trust fund for the MSS, and the money is there to sustain additional arrivals from Kenya and from the region. And we have clear signs from Kenya and the region that additional forces are expected. I don't have an exact date, but I'm confident that that will happen, and I'm confident that the money is there. So before we give up on everything, let's just look at what the situation is. We have sufficient funds in the trust fund to support the MSS for a considerable period of time. We have additional commitments that have been made by Kenya and by other countries to add to the MSS, and there's every reason to believe that that's going to continue. Do we need to do more? Is there still a critical situation? Of course, we wouldn't have had the meeting today if we were all sitting back and saying, oh, don't worry, we've got this one. We don't have this one yet, and it's no question, it's really, really difficult. And the political situation inside the country has not been easy. A lot of things haven't been easy. But speaking on behalf of my government and on myself, we're not giving up, period. We're just going to keep at it, and I think we're going to see some signs, I hope, of progress in the next few weeks.
A quick follow-up to you before I go to Ms. Russell. Did your Prime Minister reportedly met with President-elect Trump in Florida on Friday? Do you know if the issue of Haiti came up and future security issues?
I don't know. I'm hoping to have a debrief of that meeting later on this afternoon. I haven't had one yet. When I have one, I don't know whether I'll tell you about it or not.
Okay, that's fine. Fair enough. Ms. Russell, I was recently in Haiti, and I was actually with UNICEF, and I was in the South. I was in Léogâne. And I was struck by the conditions under which people are living. But they all told me that this is far worse in 2010. I was there in 2010. And one of the things, the obvious things, there were no tarps. There are no tarps. People are literally sleeping in the dirt. This was a population that had been forced out of their homes in Grecier. Everybody I talked to had owned their own homes, concrete, huge structures they built by working hard, and they did not know when they would be able to get back in. And in the camps where there was water, where there was some latrine, it was all being provided for by UNICEF, which was not a traditional role of UNICEF. And what I saw, but you guys have really sort of stepped up where other humanitarian actors in the past. I mean, what has been the pressure on UNICEF to try to respond? Because it looks like your response is going beyond just the children and just what you all have been accustomed to doing.
Well, I would say this. I think, part of the reason we wanted to do this event today was to really stress how desperate the situation is, certainly from the perspective of UNICEF, which is looking primarily at children, or at least through the lens of children, but for the population more generally, and obviously you saw that for yourself. I think we are, and not just UNICEF, but the humanitarian community is straining, for sure, under the burden of trying to address these needs. The needs are extraordinary. We have children and others who are suffering from malnutrition. We have, as you say, children and others who need shelter. The violence challenge makes everything so much worse, right? Because in addition to facing these general problems of not having enough, place to live or having enough food to eat or being able to go to school, these populations are really at constant risk of violence. And so I would say, look, UNICEF works everywhere. We have a lot of desperate situations, but this is really at the top of the list in terms of the burden that these children are dealing with. And we are working as best we can. As I said, the humanitarian appeal is only 43% funded, so we do need more resources for sure. And then in addition to that, we need to have a safe environment to work in. I can't stress that enough. It is just incredibly dangerous for the population and for humanitarian workers as well. And so, we're anxious to have some sort of resolution to the fighting and the violence, so that we can continue to do the work, not just the humanitarian response, but also the development response that we really need to do, so that there's a decent future for these children down the road. But it is an incredibly difficult environment, and I'm glad you got to see it for yourself, because it is hard to really imagine.
Thank you. I'll take last questions because we have to close that press conference. Let's go.
Inam Tahan, Associate Press. Thank you so much for sharing the information with us. I have a question about funding. We know for sure that the gang are forcing the families, after kidnapping family members in order to get the money in return. And especially they study the case of every family to see if they have members working outside the country, this is the people that they can pay. So is there any of these families contacted you? Did you help any of these families? Thank you.
No. I've met many people in Haiti. I mean, I've been to Haiti many times in the last few years because of my responsibilities here. And I've met many people who had family members who were kidnapped. I mean, kidnapping is a business. And it's being used as a bloody, ruthless business in order to extract money from people who they think can afford to pay something. But no, I've not been asked to fund it myself, no.
And I heard the same. I met a doctor who, when I came back to the United States, I heard that a member of his family had been kidnapped. There was a woman who was working for him in a clinic that I visited who had been kidnapped and held. It's a constant daily threat and worry for people who live there and work there.
I think that's the end of the press conference, and thank you to Ambassador Rae and Ms. Russell, and thank you to all. Have a good afternoon.
Thank you all.
Thank you.